Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We have a lot of information to get through today, and we're going to start with the bad. The really bad. Here's the headline. Donald Trump says that President Zelensky is a dictator because he hasn't had elections. Here's the wall of text. I'm going to have to read it, but I'll make you this promise. If we can get through this tweet, then in today's video, I won't play any clips of Donald Trump speaking. That's the deal. So here it is. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle. All of this is a lie. The United States has allocated under $200 billion, that's a lie, into a war that couldn't be won. Also a lie. I think there were plenty of opportunities to give Ukraine overwhelming force the last 3 years, and the Western coalition just was never willing to support Ukraine to the level they needed. That never had to start. That was up to Putin. Putin started this war. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe. That's a lie. And Europe's money is guaranteed. Also a lie. While the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't Sleepy Joe demand equalization? In that this war is far, far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. That's a lie. He refuses to have elections. That's also a lie. He said he would be happy to have elections within 90 days as soon as there are security guarantees and the war stops. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something I'll admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried, Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. Well, this is all psychotic and counter to America's real interests. And Donald Trump called Zelensky a dictator, basically on the 1-year anniversary of Vladimir Putin killing Alexei Navalny. Vladimir Putin has been in complete power, complete control of Russia for 26 years, having killed, imprisoned, or exiled all of his political opponents. Boris Nemtsov was killed shortly after Russia invaded Crimea in 2014. Also Mikhail Khodorkovsky. Putin imprisoned him between 2003 and 2013, and if Putin hadn't put him in jail, he probably would have been elected president of Russia. And what about Lukashenko, who just last month gave himself a re-election? He is now the longest-serving dictator in Europe, having stayed in power now for over 30 years. And Belarus is not neutral. The Russian military is occupying Belarus. They're launching drones and missiles from Belarusian territory. Would Donald Trump ever call Putin or Lukashenko a dictator? And he would never do that. So I'm going to link all the clips down below if you want proof or evidence or you want to listen to it for yourself. Trump claiming that the United States has given Ukraine $350 billion. No, they haven't. This is twice what the actual number is. Trump says Kyiv should have never started it, referring to Russia's invasion. I'll link the clip down below saying it's Ukraine's fault that Russia invaded it. Trump said that Ukraine should have given up territory to Russia to prevent the full-scale invasion, which is revisionist history, because back in 2021, Russia wasn't demanding territory. They were demanding the recognition of the independence of the DPR and LPR, fake countries where Russia was funding and arming separatists to rebel against the Ukrainian government, when in reality, Russia, of course, was pulling all the strings. Trying to give a history lesson to Trump is pointless. MAGA doesn't care. But Russia was never making territorial demands 3 years ago. They were claiming that these were supposed to be these new independent sovereign nations that wanted to break away from Ukraine. Donald Trump also claimed that Zelensky only has a 4% approval rating, which is insane. Zelensky's current approval rating is 54%, 50% higher than Trump's claim. And I'll share with you the polling data. Going back to the start of the invasion, Zelensky's approval rating was 90%. As this war has dragged on for 3 years and the Ukrainian people continue to suffer, yeah, Zelensky's polling numbers have gone down, but he's still holding the majority. And you know who doesn't have the majority of popular support in their own country? Donald Trump. Donald Trump's current approval rating here in the United States is 46%, lower than Zelensky's in Ukraine. So there's a couple different ways to interpret this. The knee-jerk reaction is Trump has betrayed Ukraine completely, siding with the Russians and Putin. But Trump actually is still just looking out for himself. If you remember 2 weeks ago when Trump put out that tough tweet on Russia, he was doing that to try and get concessions from Ukraine. This $500 billion mineral rights deal, or 50% of all future stuff pulled out of the ground. So Trump was trying to look tough on Russia to get a good deal from Ukraine. And now Trump is trying to look tough on Ukraine to get a good deal from Russia. But he's not trying to get a good deal from Russia for Ukraine. He's trying to get a good deal from Russia for himself. The Ukrainians offered Trump $500 billion. What the hell are the Russians offering Trump behind closed doors, off the books? I'm sure it'll get leaked to the press at some point, but yes, I think the Russians are offering something to Trump and his family directly. Side with us, help us destroy Ukraine, and we'll do property development together. We'll buy your crypto. We'll invest in Truth Social. The Russians have a lot of money still, and this is what Donald Trump is trying to do. Ideologically, he doesn't care about Russia or Zelensky. He's just trying to enrich himself, and he's using this war as an opportunity to try and get concessions from both sides, or as much as he can from a single side. And what is President Zelensky's reaction? Trump lives in disinformation space. Zelensky rebukes U.S. President's latest claims. Zelensky dismissed Trump's claim about his low approval rating, calling it Russian disinformation, and warned that the U.S. is helping Putin break out of isolation. At the moment, the United States still has sanctions in place on Russia, and the United States is still making weapons deliveries to Ukraine. As long as those two things are happening, then Zelensky has to hold his tongue. I do think Zelensky is handling this well, better than the average person reacting on the internet. But Donald Trump is going to do this. Now that the United States is directly talking to Russia, he's going to attack Ukraine to see what he can get from the Russians. And I think Zelensky knows this, but he has to defend himself somehow. He has to push back just a little bit. But for political leaders here in the United States, everyone should be outraged. Here's the statement from former Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Russia launched an unprovoked and brutal invasion claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. The road to peace must be built on truth. Here's Bernie Sanders. Trump and his American oligarchs are now openly aligning themselves with Putin and his Russian oligarchs. This Putin-Trump alliance means abandoning our allies, supporting authoritarianism, and undermining our democratic traditions. Where the hell is the opposition here in the United States? And I'll show you the clips. Here is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer giving his reaction on the floor of the Senate.
It's just awful to see an American president, it's disgusting to see an American president turn against one of our friends and openly side with a thug like Vladimir Putin. It's shameful to hear the president repeat Putin's propaganda while laying the groundwork for negotiations that favor Russia at Ukraine's expense. The people of Ukraine did not start this war. Vladimir Putin did. Ukrainians have fought and died on the battlefield to defend their home. The suffering and destruction.
Yeah, it sounds good, but this isn't how you make political arguments in the 21st century, in the age of social media. My advice to all Democrats, Democratic voters, primary these people. Get rid of all of them. They are clueless how to fight back against what Donald Trump has been doing for the last 10 years and what Elon Musk has supercharged it with in the age of social media. And here's the Democratic minority leader in the House who thinks he just nailed it, coming up with a new catchphrase for Donald Trump.
Captain Chaos and the extreme MAGA Republicans spent last year promising to lower the high cost of living and running away from Project 2025 as if it didn't exist.
So Hakeem Jeffries is referring to Donald Trump now as Captain Chaos. That's really going to save our democracy, guys. My advice to Democratic voters, primary all of these people. Destroy the current Democratic Party and rebuild it from the ground up into something that can actually resist authoritarianism here in the United States. This is a joke. Here are thoughts from Timothy Schneider. Trump likes being number two. He likes doing the PR work, being in front of the camera, getting the adulation, but serving the boss. Elon Musk will dominate him at home, and Putin will dominate him abroad indefinitely. He will deliver their lines, as he has just done for Putin in shocking fashion, and does for Elon Musk every single day. There is no tension for him in that. That is who he is. Do I think that Donald Trump is Hitler? And no, I don't. I don't think Donald Trump goes to bed at night or wakes up in the morning with any kind of ideology that guides him beyond, I want attention. I want people kissing my ass and sucking up to me. He just has this inferiority complex where he needs constant reaffirming adulation every second of every day. That's the only thing he wants. He wants to golf, do interviews, make money, and give speeches to large crowds. Beyond that, he's fine outsourcing policy and ideology to people like Elon Musk or Vladimir Putin. He's comfortable being the number two guy, as long as he gets to take credit when things go well, and he gets to blame the other person when things go badly. That's it. That's all he wants. It's so stupid, guys. Donald Trump is now wearing a pin of himself on his jacket.
It's a real number because people have gotten away with tremendous amounts of money. But I said we have to make our government smaller, more efficient, more effective. And
he's wearing a lapel pin of himself on his jacket. It's a cult, guys. A bill introduced in Congress would make Trump's birthday a federal holiday. A sitting U.S. president's birthday might become a federal holiday here in the United States. You know which country does that? North Korea and other dictatorships, where it's a cult of personality in which everyone has to bow down and worship the Supreme Commander, the God King. What is the damage of what Donald Trump is saying, even if he's not doing anything, just by saying this stuff? 70% of Russians now believe the so-called military operation is successful, up from 57% 2 years ago. Among those who rely on state propaganda, this number jumps to 84%. So Donald Trump is giving aid and comfort to the enemy, while demoralizing our allies, while demoralizing the people of Ukraine, while terrorizing the mental health of people like you and me, just trying to stay informed, just trying to understand what's going on in the world, his constant barrage of lies, his playing footsie with dictators. It's bad, guys. It's going to get worse, but then if everyone does their parts, I think we can make everything better. In the short term, though, Putin thinks he's winning and seeks total control over Ukraine. This is according to Western intelligence. Multiple Western intelligence agencies report Putin has no genuine interest in peace talks and believes Russia can ultimately control all of Ukraine's territory, viewing any ceasefire as merely an opportunity to reconstitute their forces. Putin also wants NATO troops removed from the whole of the former Soviet Empire. European officials believe Trump is likely to agree to withdraw US troops from the Baltics and perhaps further west. Here's the map, and it's the same map from 1950. The Russians controlled half of the European continent, the fate of tens, if not hundreds of millions of people. And the Russians directly want back the Baltics, Belarus, they're going to formally annex, Moldova, Ukraine. And if they have to, they'll use force. But they would rather just have puppet governments, pro-fascist, pro-Russian, right-wing extremist, authoritarian leaders like Viktor Orban in Hungary, Fico in Slovakia, whoever this guy who might become president of Romania. We're having elections in Germany, and they'll take the Czech Republic and Bulgaria as well. But it's not going to stop. This might be their agenda for the next 10 or 20 years, but this is where we're going, guys. This is George Orwell's 1984. The three superpowers that balance each other out and are perpetually at war. Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. The Russians, even if it takes the rest of the century, will not stop until they have a puppet pro-Russian government in France, a puppet pro-Russian government in the UK, a puppet pro-Russian government in the Baltics and the Nordic countries. And then they get to control, either directly or indirectly, the people and the resources of these territories. It's about empire. Vladimir Putin and Xi of China, and now Donald Trump of the United States, is trying to bring us back to the age of empires, to destroy the existing international rules-based order. And I know this is the world we've been living in for the last 80 years and we take it for granted. But objectively, it's weird. Just think about it. How many countries are there in the world? 195? Why are there so many small, tiny countries? Why do we care about the independence and sovereignty and ethnic and cultural identity of all these peoples? When you're one of the big dogs, when you have the military and the nukes and the power to just steamroll these people, get rid of them. This is what the Russian Federation is. It's a prison of peoples. Also referred to as a prison of nations, this was a phrase first used by Vladimir Lenin to describe his own country, the Russian Empire, in 1914. And slowly over the last century, the culture and languages and identity of all these people of the Eurasian steppes has been eradicated and replaced with Russian. The Russian language and Russian culture, which isn't that good. And this is what's going to happen if Donald Trump can strike a deal with Xi and Putin over the next century. Just steamroll your neighbors. Either control them indirectly with a puppet government, or use your militaries and take them directly. And then erase their identity, erase their sovereignty, erase their independence. This is the world that we're now spiraling towards if we don't stop it today. So let's now talk about these peace talks or negotiations, which they aren't. Kellogg arrives in Ukraine after Trump criticizes Zelensky and praises his deal-making. And General Keith Kellogg, he's fake. He's not real. I'll link this clip down below from Russia Media Monitor, but they say as much, and the Russians also noticed this goofy Trump lapel pin. The Russians are laughing at us. They're laughing at Americans. They're laughing at Europeans. They couldn't be any more satisfied with their election win in Donald Trump in November. So this gathering in Saudi Arabia, Kremlin eyes grand bargain as Trump pushes for rushed Ukraine peace deal. I do think it is important. I'll share this clip if you want to see what does it look like in the negotiating room in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The idea that the United States can sit down with the Russians in Saudi Arabia to strike up a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine would be like if Ukraine sat down with China in Thailand to figure out how to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. This doesn't make any sense, and this isn't a real peace talk summit when one of the participants in the war was not invited. They're not there. And this is shameful for me as an American, seeing people in the executive branch smiling and laughing with the Russians, acting like they're friends, when Russia is not our friend. And there is something striking about this U.S. delegation. More thoughts from Timothy Schneider. The American team has almost no experience in high-level international negotiation, no regional expertise on Ukraine and Russia, and no relevant foreign language knowledge. Not true of the Russians, to put it mildly. Looks like a bloodbath by design. So these three U.S. delegates, Waltz, Rubio, and I've already forgot his name, Witkoff, they can't speak Russian, and they've never been to Ukraine, and they have 0 years experience doing negotiations at the highest level of the State Department or any kind of international talks. This is on purpose. Donald Trump sent 3 people who have no clue what they're doing and don't stand a chance of getting a good deal for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Lavrov has been doing this for 20 years. Lavrov has been the foreign minister of Russia for over 20 years. He speaks English. He's been bullying and pushing around American diplomats for decades. And this is who Donald Trump set up at the table to represent him. And the betrayal of Marco Rubio, because I know for the last 2 months, guys, I've been telling you he's a decent guy. He's going to do the right thing. Boy, I was wrong. So here's a tweet from Marco Rubio from 3 years ago. Many in the West still don't understand that Putin is an expert liar. He doesn't care about humanitarian relief. If in fact there is a ceasefire, it's because he sees some strategic or tactical benefit. And beware of attacks on refugees, as Russia will blame Ukraine or NATO. Marco Rubio tweeted this out 3 years ago, that if Putin agrees to a ceasefire for any reason, it will be because he sees a strategic or tactical benefit to doing so. On top of this, Marco Rubio was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He knows all of the dirty secrets of everything the Russians have done the last 10 years. This was a letter he signed and wrote to President Biden in 2023 talking about the Russian attacks on U.S. diplomats in our foreign embassies. These weird microwave radiation attacks at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. The intelligence there, it was the Russians. Marco Rubio knows this. Similar with the bounties placed on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan back during Trump's first term. This was 2018, 2019. Russia has been killing Americans, targeting Americans for the last 10 years. And now we're friends? We're allies? We're on the same page, according to Marco Rubio? And these clips of these three buffoons representing my country talking about how we need to find ways to form new cooperatives with the Russians? What? Okay, let's play the clip.
But ultimately, the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort, so that process will begin. And then the third is, together with those other two, is beginning to engage in identifying the extraordinary opportunities that exist should this conflict come to a acceptable end, the credible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest, and frankly, economically, on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and will also improve.
Opportunities to partner with the Russians on economics? There is nothing that Russia has that the United States needs. And there's nothing that Russia does that we need to cooperate with them on. The only time America and Russia ever talk to each other is on arms control and to try and stop the Russians from invading and killing people. What is this meeting really about? And it's about lifting sanctions. And Marco Rubio even says it.
Well, sanctions are all the result of this conflict. They're sanctions that were imposed as a result of this conflict. And so I would say to you that in order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides. We're not going to predetermine what those are. We're certainly not going to negotiate this today or in a press conference for that matter. But and there are other parties that have sanctions. The European Union is going to have to be at the table at some point because they have sanctions as well that have been imposed.
This is a setup. So Putin and Trump are going to meet in Saudi Arabia in like 2 weeks. Trump is going to shake Putin's hand and say Putin wants peace. Putin has agreed to a ceasefire, but Zelensky has to have an election, and we have to lift all sanctions. And Europe and the G7 also has to lift all sanctions. This is the proposed Trump peace plan that's been leaked. Step 1, a ceasefire, which Putin will gladly agree to because he's getting everything he wants in the short term. Elections in Ukraine, and then they'll figure out the details. Where are the lines going to be drawn? Who's going to recognize what? Who gets the city of Zaporizhia or Kherson or Kharkiv? The details will come after Ukraine has an election. So what's happening here is the Russians are trying to destroy Ukraine, and they want to create political division by triggering or initiating a partisan election in Ukraine. It'll rip the country apart. Russia will send in their information jackals to pump up opposition candidates. And I'm telling you now, when a country has been invaded and millions of their people are living abroad or sleeping in trenches on the front lines, yeah, you're going to have some voter irregularities. So by Russia and now the United States demanding that Ukraine have an election, the goal is to attack the legitimacy of Zelensky. Zelensky could get 55, 60, 70% of the vote, an overwhelming mandate. But you can't have an election without there being irregularities. And the Russians and Trump's disinformation machine will exploit those irregularities to destroy the legitimacy of President Zelensky. Right now, President Zelensky is the leader of the free world. He is the one holding up the democratic Western alliance. He is the one fighting, really, for the values that America had up until last November, and the values that the Europeans claim they still hold today. This is a setup. This is a trap. This makes no sense. And it's just shameful, guys. I'm sorry. So we have to keep invoking the famous quotes of Winston Churchill. You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and now you will have war. If Ukraine falls to Russia, we are entering a new age of empires in which there will be continuous warfare on almost every continent, from now until forever. How am I wrong? And really, this terrible world we're now living in, guys, is a result of this one man, Elon Musk. So Donald Trump tweeted out the other day, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," declaring himself a dictator. And Elon Musk responded with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 American flags. Seems kind of a coincidence. 14. Is there any other numbers that matter? And 14 is a Nazi dog whistle. The 14 words is a reference to two slogans originated by the American domestic terrorist David Eden Lane, one of the 9 founding members of the defunct white supremacist terrorist organization The Order, and are accompanied by Lane's 88 precepts. The slogans have served as a rallying cry for militant white nationalists internationally. So the 14-word slogan is, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." This is what Elon Musk tweets all day, every day. We have to protect the white people in South Africa. We have to protect white people in Germany. We have to protect white people in the UK from the invasion of refugees and migrants and Muslims. 88 is also a Nazi number. H is the 8th letter in the alphabet, so 88 becomes HH, Heil Hitler. And these are the people that Elon Musk is working with, and Donald Trump is appointing to the federal government. I already told you in a previous video about JakeBroeYT tweeting out these numbers, 14 and 88. I just tried, and if you make a video that lasts 14 minutes and 88 seconds, it'll get blocked. They used it 1,400 times in the last 88 years. 1488 Hillary, diversity equals white genocide. And here he is. Here is JakeBroeYT, appointed by Trump to be part of the delegation to handle talks with Ukraine. He tweeted out on February 13th, it's called "We Do a Little MAGA World Peace." There are Nazis in the executive branch who are in charge of our foreign diplomatic talks. Elon Musk is a Nazi. This wasn't an accident. I know there are lots of people who think he's a genius and he's great and they drive Teslas and they love their cars and they think SpaceX is incredible and we're going to make it to Mars. But this is a fascist takeover of the American government. Donald Trump just issued an executive order saying that only the president and the attorney general can interpret federal law, or any law, or the Constitution here in the United States. This is an important clip. We need to play it.
Lastly, we have another executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the president or the attorney general can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
Only the president and the president's attorney general can interpret what the law is. Why do we have a judicial branch then? If the president can issue an executive order to annul parts of the Constitution, why do we have Congress? And if the president can interpret all laws that he writes with executive orders, why do we have a judiciary? This is a fascist takeover of the American government. Please resist. And what is their argument? What is Elon Musk's argument for this supreme executive power that is necessary to save America? And here is his argument.
And so, how can you, if the will of the president is not implemented, and the president is representative of the people, that means the will of the people is not being implemented, and that means we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. And so I think what we're...
If the will of the president is not implemented, and the president is the representative of the people, then we're not a democracy. Okay, So, U.S. civics. The United States is a pluralist federalist society in which the states elect delegates to choose the president. So we don't have a direct representative democracy to elect our president. We elect delegates from the states who then select the president. So the president is not a direct representative of the people. And we proved this in 2016 when Donald Trump lost the popular vote, but still got to be president because of the Electoral College. We do have representatives here in America that represent the will of the people, and it's called the U.S. House of Representatives. If the president is not just the chief executive in charge of executing the laws of the country, but instead is also the purest representative of the people who can write laws and interpret laws, then why do we have a House of Representatives? Why do we have a legislative branch? If you're watching this video, you're already on my side. I'm preaching to the choir here, but we need people to rally. Seriously, we need to resist. I want to share this tweet from the president of Latvia. Never stop panicking. That is kind of going to be our motto going forward the next 4 years. I'm confident these people are going to be defeated. They're all idiots. But everyone's going to have to step up and work harder. And I'm telling you, there will be challenging times ahead, but we're going to win because these people are idiots. So the protesting has started. This is Washington, D.C. This is a pretty large crowd spontaneously gathering outside the Capitol. Here is a protest. I think this is Washington Square Park. This is New York City. These are going to grow. We're less than a month into Trump's presidency, and we're already getting mass demonstrations and protests. By day 100, by 6 months, by a year, nothing in America is going to get better. And the people will start organizing, will start resisting. These people are fascist Nazis and they will be defeated. So we need Ukraine to do their part, because Ukraine is fighting for all Western democracies right now. Ukrainian army confirms successful attacks on 2 Russian pumping stations and a refinery, and they shut it down. Drone strike halts operations at key Russian fuel supplier. We need an economic or political collapse of Russia as soon as possible to stop this grand alliance from forming between the United States, Russia, and China. Here's where the refinery is located. As always, if you want the pictures or videos of it on fire, I'll link it down below. Ukraine attack on Russian pipeline to hit the Kazan oil exports. Here is a pipeline that the Ukrainians struck, and I think it shut down the pipeline temporarily, but keep going, Ukraine. Get them all. Don't stop. This is critical for the world now. Videos show drones destroying Russia's 130 million missile system in Donetsk. If you want to see the video of the missile system going boom, I'll link it down below. Russia's North Korean Koksan artillery destroyed in Ukraine for the first time. These are artillery systems that have been sent from North Korea to Russia, and we got our first confirmed video destroying one of these things. Kind of cool, I'll link it down below. 8 Russian drone operators blinded after FPV-rigged goggles explode. Remember that pager attack that Israel did against Hezbollah? Well, somehow Ukrainian intelligence managed to slip explosives into delivered FPV goggles, and when the Russians put it on, the tiny explosives blew up while they were wearing them. This video, I think, is taken from a Russian, and they're explaining how it works, so I'll link it down below if you want to see the details. Okay, if you made it this far in the video, I know why you're still here. You want to see videos of donkeys. Donkeys on the front lines, handling Russia's logistics.
Да ладно, не надо. Давай. Вам тоже удачи. Тут... Не, у нас сами должны привезти. Вот тоже бензин без воды, блядь. Вот. Где-то здесь-то, короче, наши должны, кажется, прилетают. Нас вот на видео ездят.
Second army in the world, guys. And they're using donkeys on the front lines. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine to receive 12,000 Latvian drones early this year. Thank you so much to the people of Latvia. Lithuania delivers 80 million euros in military aid. Thank you so much to the people of Lithuania. Germany announces new military aid package for Ukraine. Usual good stuff. Thank you so much to the people of Germany. I know you have an election this week. Please don't vote for the AfD. Otherwise, you'll lose your democracy as well. Final video I have for you. These are Ukrainian veterans walking the runway at Ukrainian Fashion Week. I don't really understand fashion, but these gentlemen look pretty good. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth. Keep defending democracy.